Hi everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to do something a little different. Let's Resin has asked me to do a tutorial on their resin coaster DIY kit beginner set. And I said, sure, I'll do it. So let's go over what's in it. I already took everything out of the box and out of the packages, so we didn't have to mess with all that. And so here's what's in it. You get 4 measuring cups, and it's the ones that has the mLs on one side and the ounces on the other. You get 30 ounces of resin, 15 of part B and 15 of part A. You get foils, silver, gold, and copper. You get gloves, mixing sticks. You get a set of coasters and a coaster holder. And you get 4 different sizes of spheres. And then it also comes with a user manual for resin beginners. Basically tells you how to mix your resin. You always want to read instructions no matter what. Gives you your safety precautions, always wear gloves, place a protective sheet over your table, respirator, you know, all of that stuff. Tells you how to mix it, how to clean your molds, what you can mix in it. Has an FAQ section if you have any questions, if something happens, and tells you basically everything that you need to know. How to pour, how to mix, everything. And Let's Resin's resin is a 1-to-1 ratio by volume, not weight. And so basically to use this, you're going to need the resin, you're going to need a mixing cup, something to stir with, gloves, and to get started. So let's dive into this. I am only going to, whoops, I'm knocking stuff over here. We are not going to make all of this because I want to keep this video short. These are the wooden stir sticks that come with it. I don't recommend using them just because they're raw wood, and raw wood tends to incorporate bubbles into your resin. So I put those aside, and I have resin or wood sticks that I have used and used. But what I do and how I season them is when I have mixed up resin before, I've left that resin on there. I just smear it on there and then let it sit and let it harden. And then you can worry about that later. But Let's Resin, I had ordered something from Let's Resin, and they sent me a couple of their paddles in their stuff. So that's what I'm going to use today. So we're going to focus on one coaster today, and we're not going to mess with any of the spheres because those can be kind of complicated. I want to make this as simple as possible because when you're a beginner, you are just beginning. So I'm trying to decide. I want to use one of these. I think we'll use the gold. So we are using one coaster, and if you ever want to figure out how much your coaster holds, basically you can pour water in this and then pour the water in a measuring cup, and that'll tell you how much it holds. I know how much it holds because I've been doing this forever. So it's going to hold about 4 ounces of resin. So let's discuss working time. Let's Resin's epoxy, this particular one has a working time of about 40 minutes. So the 40 minutes is from the time you mix it until the 40 minutes is up. So once you mix it, after you stir it, mix it, after your 4 minutes, then that working time starts the minute that 4 minutes is up. So you've got 40 minutes from that point. So after you mix your resin and you want to put something in it, or, you know, whatever, then that's what you're going to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up the resin, because I like for my resin to rest before I pour anything or put anything in it. So we're going to mix up 4 ounces of resin. But before I do that, because these molds are new and you want to make sure that you have nothing in your mold, so I use painter's tape, and I go through and I just stick it in there and make sure that there's nothing inside the mold. I don't clean my molds with alcohol because it tends to dry out your molds, and eventually they can turn yellow. And I own a lot of molds from Let's Resin. I don't own them all, obviously, but I do own quite a few. And by using painter's tape and just going through and using that on them, it keeps them from getting damaged, dried out. I don't use a mold release on mine because I don't like the effect it gives after you take it out of the mold. So with that being said, that's cleaned. We're going to mix up some resin. So we're going to start with part A, and we are going to mix 4 ounces. So I'm going to mix 2 ounces of part A. And then you want to wipe off your bottle because you don't want dripping stuff everywhere, because that leaves sticky residue everywhere and inside your cap. And then, most importantly, put the cap back on it because you don't want this to get spilt. And then part B, we're going to go up to 4 ounces. And it's okay if you don't get exactly the right amount. If you make too much, I always make sure that I have a mold on standby. That way you don't waste the leftover resin. You can pour it into another mold. Okay, mixing, very important. When you mix your resin, get your timer. It's always good to prepare your workstation for everything that you're going to need before you start doing stuff. So, mixing resin, very important. Slow and uniform. So you're just going to stick your paddle in there and you're going to stir slow. You don't need to mix it fast because it's not necessary. You're taking your time. Because when you start mixing it fast, like you're baking a cake, you're going to incorporate a ton of bubbles in there, and you don't want to do that. Sorry, I can't talk. I'm stuttering. So just mix slow, steady, and I like to go about 10 times in one direction, and then I flip it around and go the other direction. I don't ever take my paddle or my stir stick out of the resin, because once you do that and stick it back in, you're gonna incorporate air into there. So, and then once I do that a couple times, round and round 10 times, round and round the other way 10 times, then I will take the spatula and just scrape the sides. And you notice I didn't take the paddle out of the resin. And then continue to stir. Because there's really no reason when you're mixing this much resin that you should have to take that paddle out. I call it a paddle, but it's a stir stick, whatever you want to call it. You do you, boo. And then just keep mixing it back and forth. I rotate directions just because it gives it a rotation of mix, and you'll notice that the resin is getting clearer because when we first started it was cloudy, and as you mix it becomes clearer and clearer. And now we're going to scrape. And the purpose of the scraping is to make sure that you have all of the stuff off the sides in case you, let's say for instance, you poured your resin down the side and you have some part B on the side remaining. You want to get that. You want to get it all in there. It's kind of like baking a cake in a sense, because you know, when you're baking a cake, you want to get all that powder in there mixed, and so you scrape the sides when you're baking a cake. So that's basically the same concept. You want to make sure you get all that resin in there mixed up. So my timer just went off. I'm going to check for striations, and I have 0. So my resin is completely mixed up. So then you take your paddle out, scrape off the sides. Really good. And you'll notice I only have very few bubbles. Very few. But now that I've lifted it up, I can still see a couple striations in there. So I'm going to go back in and mix for just a little bit longer. I couldn't see it before because of the background on my table. I want to make 110% sure that my resin is completely mixed up. There's no hurry, so there's no reason to rush. You want to make sure that this resin is mixed. And the reason why is because if it's not mixed, it's not going to cure correctly. And you don't want that. I see a lot of comments out there on Facebook and on YouTube, and those questions are always, why didn't my resin cure? Well, most likely it's because of not mixing your resin correctly, or you didn't pour the correct ratios, or you might have mixed it by weight and not by volume, or I mean, it could be a number of things, but the most important thing is to mix it correctly. And now looking at it, I'm going to lift it back up. Now I see 0 striations. Remove my stick, and then I will wipe that stick off. It's easy to clean your resin if you have a baby wipe, or if you have a paper towel with alcohol on it. Either way is fine, just as long as you get it cleaned off. Some people like to leave their utensils with resin on them and then pick it off later. That's not me. I don't like that. I am a gotta clean it up right now person. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little measuring cup, and Let's Resin does have these available. I love these little gadgets. And I'm going to take some of these foil thingies. And I'm going to rub them in my fingers and break them up inside here because I don't want them to be real big. I don't want like massive chunks. Grab some more out of here. Because this stuff is pretty chunky. And then I'm going to, gotta get this off my hands, I can't stand it. Okay, and then I'm gonna pour some resin in here. And these little cups, I believe, are 40 milliliters, if I'm not mistaken. Now, I'm going to use one of my stir sticks, one of my cured stir sticks, and I'm gonna mix this up in here. And you can add glitter, you can add just about any kind of decoration that you want. Today, I thought it would be kind of cool for something simple, because I've done several tutorials for Let's Resin. Oop, I keep sticking to that thing. I've done several tutorials for Let's Resin, and one of them was a jewelry tutorial, and they sent me some dried flowers, and so I thought it would be kind of, I had some left over, so I thought, why not use those today in this coaster? So I'm going to pour a little bit of resin in the bottom of here. Not too much. And I've got some flowers here that I got out, and we are going to stick these. You know what? Here I am mentioning to be safe, and I forgot to put my gloves on. You guys need to help me out here. It's no wonder. I didn't want to put them on because I didn't want that gold flake to stick to these, so that could be why. All right, let me get my gloves on here now that I'm messing with the resin. Okay, so, and of course what happens? I get a hair. Oh, goodness sakes. Okay, I am going to put the big flower in the middle. Actually, I'm going to scoot it over because there's two big flowers. I got to turn these upside down. I forgot. Because that's the front. All right. And then I want to kind of place that one a little bit on top. I'm going to pat them down a little bit. And then there is, let me grab a wipe here so I'm not getting resin all over everything. There is another big one. And I'm going to put him right there. And then we're going to bring a little color into the mix. This is one of every flower that they sent. It looks like one of my petals fell off here. Let me grab a better pair of pliers. I mean, tweezers here. Just a second. Let me get this back on here. Press them down because they're going to float if you don't. And flowers are always easy to use because they're dried and ready to go. Now, this one I am going to put right there. And then the purple one right there. And then this little dude was off of another flower. Stick that right there. And then I have another one of those. Whoops. Oh, come here. He's like, no, don't put me in there. I don't want to go. Put that right there. And I may not be able to get all of these in here, but I'm going to sure try. Put that one right there. My head's in there, I apologize. And then maybe this one right there. It doesn't, let me see. Let me do some poking here. Put these down. And these are dried, so you have to be very gentle with them. Of course they want to float because they're so light. And I'm going to move this little guy over here because then I think I'm going to put that other one right there. Okay. I think, yeah, that's the front. All right. I got them all in there. All right, now we are going to pour in this. Okay, and then I'm going to take this and I'm going to move some of this around so that it kind of fills in some of these blank spaces, because obviously you're not going to see it behind the flowers. Not guaranteeing that it's going to stay there, but we'll sure give it a try. Don't like that big piece. Once it's there, you can't really... Normally what I do with foil, and you can laugh, but I put it through a coffee grinder and I grind it up. Just give it a couple swirls in that because it grinds it up so that it's fine. And it's not in these big, huge, giant pieces. It makes it so much easier. I'm going to take that out of there. Move some of these over here, some of these blank spaces away from those flowers. Get you back down. Okay. And that's basically it, guys. And then we'll come back when this is cured and we'll see how it looks. Okay? Be back in a little while. Welcome back, everybody. Guess what's done? Just gonna get this out of the mold. See how this looks. Oh, I added a little glitter to it because I wasn't quite satisfied with the gold. I just poured it on top. there it is. How pretty. I like it. So there you have it. So that's real simple. Very easy for a beginner. So yeah, I will link in the description the link for this resin coaster DIY kit beginner set. So that way, if you're interested in purchasing that, you can do that. Other than that, that's all I have for you. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to ask any questions you like. I'm happy to answer them. Like I said, Let's Resin asked me to do this, and I was happy to. Let me know what you think. That's all I have for you, guys. Thanks for watching. Have a good evening. Sweet dreams.